All right, guys, I'm going to go over most of this. I'm not going to go over all of this worksheet because I'm going to let you do some of the problems on your own. But I'm going to go over most of it and leave a couple blanks so you guys actually have some problems to do on your own. So when I grade this, the ones I leave blank, I'll be grading a lot more closely than the ones I don't leave blank. So make sure you're paying attention to these examples so you can do the ones that you need to do. All right. So remember, if the problem begins with just an x squared or just a p squared, if the variable that we begin with right here, if that has 1x squared or just an x squared, we get to use that adding shortcut, right? Remember with the GPS. So that's like section 1.3 if we were using the book on a regular basis. And that's pretty simple. So remember, every time I'm always going to follow this. I'm always going to start looking for something in common to start. So I look at this, there is nothing in common. That's why I say no, right? So like this GPS is just turn-by-turn directions. So like no, there's nothing in common, and I count the number of terms. 1 term, 2 term, 3 terms. So now I have to do step 1. You must show your work for step 1 and 2. You must show it. So step 1 work, I'm going to say how do I get x squared, x, and x. I don't care if you do it in your head, you still have to show this work. Right? This is what differentiates between like human work and like computer work. So I want to see that it's your work and I want you to show it. So that's step 1. Step 2 is how do I get negative 18? So remember it's a negative 18. So I say negative 1 and 18. I could say negative 2 and 9. It could also be negative 3 and 6. Now for this one, I'm not going to make you show every single set of factors, but you can at least show the ones you're going to use. Later, when it gets more difficult, like 1.4 type stuff, you're going to probably want to show all the factors anyhow. So now, because I'm using my shortcut right here, remember the shortcut, I'm going to use 9 and 2 because that adds up to 7. Now I want negative 7, so I'm actually going to use negative 9 and positive 2. So I'm going to put x minus 9, x plus 2, done. It's the entire problem. Remember, if there is no equal sign in the original problem, your answer is in sets of parentheses and you're done. Right? 2, same exact concept. How do I get p squared? P and p. That's step 1. You have to show step 1. How do I get negative 14? Negative 1 and 14, negative 2 and 7. 7 and negative 2 adds up to be 5. I want negative 5, so I'm going to switch it to p plus 2, p minus 7. Done. That's the entire problem. Right? So 3 and 4 are going to be on your own. So no reason you can't do 3 and 4. So make sure you do 3 and 4 on your own. All right, so 5. 5 is a little bit more difficult. So 5 is like a really good example of kind of the new stuff. So once again, everything's going to be exactly the same. I'm still going to follow my GPS. I'm looking for something in common. So I'm going to look at this first term, 7x squared, negative 31, negative 20. There is nothing in common. They don't share a letter. There is not a number that divides by all 3 of them. So now I count the number of terms. So this is where I'm going to write step 1, factors. How do I get 7x squared? It's 7x and x, right? That's the beginning of my parentheses. Now how do I get negative 20? I could have negative 1 and 20. I could have negative 2 and 10. I could have negative 4 and 5. Any of those are options, right? There's no good rule of thumb about what to pick. My rule of thumb in my brain is just what, in my experience, it's usually worked for me, is I usually pick the numbers that are closer together first, but that's not always true. The more practice you get with this, the more experience. Sometimes you'll see the middle number and it'll kind of jump something out there. But if you need like a rule of like to follow all the time, step 1, make sure you try first set, then the next set, then the next set. So I did step 1, I did step 2, step 3, I'm going to check the middle using FOIL. So I have to guess. So I'm basically going to guess. I know it has to be 7x and x. I know that part. Remember, our adding shortcut doesn't work, right? So I cannot use my little, this shortcut, can't use it. No shortcut on number 5. I have to actually check using FOIL. Remember, FOIL is how we multiply these parentheses together. So I'm just going to guess negative 4 and 5 to start. I don't know if it's going to work. No clue. I'm going to put minus 4 plus 5. It's a complete guess. So now I'm going to do the outside. And I'm going to do 7x times 5. I'm going to write 35x. You could do all of FOIL if you want, like first, outside, inside, last, or 7x, like the whole multiplication. I'm just doing the inside and the outside. I get minus 4x together. That's 31x. It's really close, actually. I got lucky. I guessed right. Right? Now remember, order matters. I will get a completely different middle number if the 4 is next to the x and not next to the 7x. So it does matter. Now to make this correct, what I do have to do, I do have to change those signs. So I'm going to make this a plus 4. I'm going to make this a minus 5. So now when I do that, I get plus 4x, I get minus 35x, which is minus 31x. So look, that's my final answer. 7x plus 4 in one parentheses, x minus 5. It doesn't matter which set of parentheses you write first. You can write x minus 5 first, but the 4 and the 7x have to be in the same one, and it has to be positive 4. X and minus 5 have to be in the same set of parentheses. All right, number 6. So number 6, I'm going to still look for something in common. I always do that first. Right? They both have a k. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, look, since they both have a k, I take that 1k outside. Remember, it's kind of like chipping in. Right? 9k can't give any more than 1k because that's all he's got. So I have 7k plus 9. That's it. Once I look in here, inside the parentheses is 2 terms and they're not perfect squares. There's nothing left in common. So I'm done. That's it. That's the entire thing. All right, number 7 is almost exactly like number 5. So I'm going to have to say, how do I get 7x squared? So I know it's 7x and x. Now how do I get negative 28? I could have negative 1 and 28. I could have negative 2 and 14. I could have negative 4 and 7. So it's one of those 3 options. Now a good rule of thumb, that if you do step 1 like you're supposed to, where you always look for something in common, and this is a little bit more complicated and somebody might not understand right away, which is, it's not the end of the world. But if you actually do this like you're supposed to every time, if you don't have anything in common in your original problem, when you write your parentheses, you can't have anything in common. So like when I write my parentheses, I know I have to start with 7x and x. And I know, even though like I'm going to guess negative 4 and 7, but I am not going to put the 7 here. If I put the 7 here, look, both these guys would have a 7. And that didn't happen earlier. That would mean they have something in the parentheses now. I should add something in common parentheses in the original problem, and I don't. So just to make that's a little bit more complicated math concept, and it's not a big deal if you don't understand it, because you're going to check your work anyhow, so it doesn't matter if you mess it up. It won't work out. The middle will never work out anyhow. So this is a complete guess. I have no idea if this is going to work or not. I did the outside. 7 times 7 is 49, so the outside is 49x. The inside is minus 4x. Together I end up with 45x. That's what I want. Now the only problem is I have the wrong sign. So remember, if you have the right number but the wrong sign, just change both signs in parentheses. So this is going to become plus 4. This can become minus 7, which makes that positive minus minus, and that's what I want. All right. So I'm going to leave 8 for you on your own. I'm going to leave 9 for you on your own. So 8 and 9 are yours on your own. They are done just like 5 and 7. They're done just like 5 and 7, right? 10. 10's a little bit different because I notice right away, look, all these, 3 of these have ends, right? So look, I actually am saying, yes, they do have something in common. So I'm not counting the terms first. Now I also notice at the same time that all the numbers can be divisible by 4. So all 3 of these can be divisible by 4. They all have ends. They all have at least 2 ends. So remember, whenever you take out a common term, right? That's when I talk about like chip in, right? That's when everyone wants to chip in and give the same amount. So you can't ever, like if I wanted just all to chip in to buy something together, I can't ask you guys to give more money than you have. So with this thing, you can't ever give any more letters or numbers than they have. So I'm going to take out 4, because all 3 can be divided by 4, and n squared, because all have at least n squared. Because remember, n cubed is n squared times n, and n to the fourth is n squared times n squared. So they all have at least n squared. So what's left over becomes 28 divided by 4. So 28 divided by 4 is 7 n squared. So if I want to check my work, I could always go 4 n squared times 7 n squared, and it should give me this. And it does. Right. Now, I'm going to do the same thing to get the middle term. So I do 16 divided by 4, it's plus 4. I had n cubed, I took out n squared, so I'm left with just 1n. And now I have negative 80 divided by 4 is minus 20. I already took care of the n squared. So now inside these parentheses, I'm going to do it, so I'm just focusing on these three like I would right here. So inside the parentheses, I have three terms. How do I get 7n squared? Well, it's 7n and n. How do I get negative 20? Negative 1 and 20, negative 2 and 10, negative 4 and 5. So I'm just going to check again to see. I'm just completely guessing, so I'm going to put 4n squared because that just hangs out. I'm going to put 7n in my first set of parentheses. I'm going to put n in my second set of parentheses. And now I'm going to put the 5 with the 4, or with the 7, and I'm going to put the 4 with the n. I have no idea if this is going to work or not. I'm just going to find out. So now I do the outside. I get 28n. The inside, I get minus 5n. Together, that is 23n. Not what I want. All right. Now, if I want to check it again, before I can say 5 and 4 don't work, remember, I can always flip the order. So just because 5 and negative 4 did not work yet, doesn't mean I can say that 5 and 4 are out as a possibility, because remember, I also got to try with the 4 with the 7, because order matters. This is the difference between like the easy stuff that we did to start, like number 1, versus like what we're doing now is a little bit harder because order matters. So I try 35n for the outside, minus 4n for the inside. Together, that's 31n. That's not what I want in the middle. So so I can cross off 5 and 4 now. I know that's not an option, right? So now I'm just going to try a completely different set of factors. So I say 4n squared, but this time I'm going to try 7n and n, but this time I'm going to try negative 2 and 10. So I'm going to try, I'm going to put the minus 2 here. I'm going to put the 10 here. Complete guess. I don't know if it's going to work. Let's find out. So I do the outside is minus 14n. I do the inside is positive 10n. Together, that is minus 4n. It's pretty close actually, because I just don't want negative 4. I want positive 4. So remember to fix that. I change both signs. So now I'm going to make this minus 10n. I'm going to make this positive 2. All right? So that's actually my final answer here. All those pieces together. That's it. All right, so 11, exact same concept. I'm going to start off with, I'm going to use my GPS. So in case you're struggling with that, remember, it's the same exact concept. We're going to continue to use the same exact thing. Every time I need to use my GPS to help me when I'm lost. So, there is something in common? No. Oh, I lied. See, all three have a B. So there is something in common. They have a common term. They actually have a common letter. So I take out the B, because they all three have at least one B. I'm going for 3b squared minus 5b plus 2. Now I do inside the parentheses just like I did before. So the factors of the first term, you're going to show this stuff every time. Plus it's at least a point. 2 and 1. That's step 2. Now you get at least 2 points. Now I'm going to guess 3b B. Now it just matters where you put the 2 and the 1. Now, I actually know right away it's going to be negative and negative because it's a positive number at the end, but the middle has to be negative. There's no way you can use two positives to get a negative in the middle. So, and I can't forget my b, that's right there. See that b falls down. So I'm just going to guess, I'm going to put the 1 with the 3, and I'm going to put the 2 with the b. I do the outside, I end up with minus 6b. I do the inside, I get minus 1b. Together, that's minus 7b. That's not what I want. So before I can say this doesn't work, I do have to change the order. I have to put the 2 with the 3 then. So look, I'm just going to change the order. So I'm going to put 3b minus 2 and then b minus 1. And notice, look, I'm going to get a different middle this time. I get minus 3b on the outside. I get minus 2b on the inside. Together, that's minus 5b. That's what I want. All right? So, 12 you're going to do on your own. 13. I'm looking at 13. 13 might be one of the harder ones just because you guys don't like those numbers and it has 2 letters that's going to freak everybody out. But nothing's going to change. I'm still going to look, no matter what it looks like, always start with the top. Look for something in common. They all have 1b. They all don't have n's, so they don't share any n's. They only share b's. And actually, all 3 of these can be divided by 3. So they have a letter that's in common. Here's the letter. They all have a number that can be divided by all 3 of them. So I'm going to put 3 outside the parentheses because all 3 of those can be divided by 3. Some of you probably wouldn't see that. You'd have to guess and check and see that 87 is divisible by 3. And then they all have a letter. So I'm left with, on the inside, 10n squared minus 29n plus 10. And now I'm just going to go through and double check. Or now I'm going to go through and double check and make sure I did distribute it correctly. So if you want to check your work, 3b times 10n squared does give me that. 3b times minus 29 does give me that. 3b times positive 10 does give me that. So that all works. And then I can do step 1, how do I get 10n squared? Now this one's a little bit harder because not only could it be 1n and 10n, it could also be 2n and 5n. Positive 10 could be 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. Okay? I don't know which one's going to work. And like I said, my rule of thumb is I always try the numbers that are kind of closer together. So I'm just going to guess 2 and 5 and 2 and 5. I have no idea this is going to work. Completely guess. And that's all this is. It's just guess and check. This is why they use factoring for security stuff. That's why it kind of started, because there's not really a really good way to kind of look at the numbers and say this is going to be it. You have to guess and check. Now I do know that that I'm not going to put the 2 with the 2. I'm going to put the 5 with the 2. And I do know actually right away, I already know, because this is positive at the end and this is negative in the middle, I know these are both going to be negative. So I'm going to put minus 5 here and minus 2 here, and I'm going to see if it works. I have no idea if it's going to work. And actually, look, I think it's going to work. I do the outside, I get minus 4n. I do the inside, I get minus 25n. Together, that's minus 29n. And that's what we have inside. So this is my final answer right there. Remember, guys, factoring doesn't solve it, right? Unless there's an equal sign, we are not solving this, right? Unless there's an equal sign, we don't solve. Hope that makes sense. All right, you guys are going to do 14, 15, and 16 on your own. All right, now we move on. All right, 17 and 18, exact same concept. So once again, if you're lost, it's literally the same thing we're doing every single time. That's why there's no easy way to get better at this, but unless you just practice it and actually do your work. If you're not going to do your work, you're not going to figure it out. You're not going to get better at it. So you're just going to have to suck it up and do your work. I don't know what else to tell you. So that's really your only option to get better at this, is to just do your work. So if you don't do that, you're going to struggle, and then you're going to have a bad time. So make sure you're doing your work. So 17. Nothing in common. Even though it looks like it, there's not a number that goes into all three. Remember, with 4, if there's a small number up front, you only have to check all those numbers. But they do all have an x, so I did almost miss that letter. So all 3 of these have an x. So I put x outside the parentheses. All right, on the inside, I'm left with 4x squared plus 43x plus 30. All right, now I'm going to go through and factor out I'm going to go through and follow my steps. I could have 1x and 4x, 2x, and 2x. Those are just 2 choices. Same thing with 30. I could have 1 and 30, 2 and 15. I could have 3 and 10. I could have 5 and 6. Now I do know that it's going to be all positive because it's a positive at the end, it's a positive in the middle. So now I just got to guess. I have no idea which one's going to work. So my first guess is I'm going to guess 2x and 2x. I'm going to guess 5 and 6 and 5 and 6. So I put x outside the parentheses because it's just there. I'm going to say 2x, 2x. I'm going to say plus 5, plus 6. Now I'm going to do the outside. I get 12x. I'm going to do the inside. I get 10x. Together that's 22x. Not what I want. Now the good news, one of the reasons I always start with if the numbers match, flipping them, changing the order won't change the middle because they're both 2x's. So 5x is out. So I know I just got to go through and I got to try 3 and 10. So I'm going to say 3 and 10. So now my outside, the outside gives me, the outside would be 20x and the inside would be 6x. Together that is 26x. Now what I want 43. So this is not the right choice. So I know 5 and 6 doesn't work. I know 3 and 10 doesn't work. So I got to try something. I'm trying 2 and 15. This is the idea, like, this is one of the reasons why it was a good basis for our security, because sometimes you got to keep on guessing. Now I do know that 2 and 15 more than likely won't work because if I put a 2 here, they would have something in common. But I could show it, but it's not going to work. 1 and 30 is not going to work. So that means I tried all these with 2x and 2x. That means 2x and 2x is just not a possibility. Doesn't mean the problem isn't done yet. It just means I guessed wrong. And I got to try the other option. So my other option is I could have x, but instead of having 2x and 2x, I could have 1x and 4x. Now I got to go through the whole thing again. So I got to go through all these factors again, because now that I changed the first term, all these options are possibilities again. So I still could have 1 and 30. I still could have 2 and 15. I still could have 3 and 10. I still could have 5 and 6. So I'm going to try 5 and 6 to start. So I do the outside. I get 6x. I do the inside. I get 20x. That is 26x. Not going to work. All right. Now remember, this one, we do have to switch the order because they're not the same numbers. So you will get a different middle term if the 6 is with the x or if the 6 is with the 4. So I got to put the 5 with the 4 now and the 6 with the 1. So I end up with 5 times 1 is 5x. The outside's going to be, or the inside's going to be 24x. 29x is not what I have in the middle. So look, now I can cross off 5 and 6. I got to try 3 and 10 now. So sometimes you end up doing a lot of guessing. So that's why some of these are really annoying problems. But it's also really highlights exactly why we need to learn this, because this is very helpful stuff if you're trying to create some sort of security system. So now I'm going to try 3 and 10. So I'm going to put I'll put the 10 with the 1, and I'll put the 3 here. So the outside gives me 3x. The inside gives me 40x. Together, that is 43x, and we are finally done. So this whole problem I had to go through all those choices just to get that one to work. Right? 18 is going to be on your own. And I'm going to do, oh, I like this. These are good questions. So for what values of b is the expression factorable? So basically, guys, if I didn't know b, this is a number. We're going to, so b equals what numbers? Or what numbers could it be? So I know that's x and x. I know that's 1 and 12. I know that's 2 and 6. I know that's 3 and 4. So if b was 13, then I would use 1 and 12. It would work. If it was 8, it would work. If it was 7, it would work. It would also work for the negatives if both these were negative. So b could be equal to 13 or negative 13. It could be equal to 8 or negative 8, 7 or negative 7. Any other version of b would not work. Do something very similar to 19 or for 20, but you're using the end. So I'm not going to let you do, I'm not going to give you the answer to 20. And that's it for that.